Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are streaming another podcast episode live. This is episode 35. And today we're going to be continuing a conversation that we've had in other containers the last couple of weeks around marketing and your nervous system business map. You may have heard us talk about this in earlier episodes. The nervous system map is the nervous system business map is a tool that we created and have been working with for about a year with really phenomenal results. And today we're going to zero in on the marketing piece because we have a really brilliant group of educators and coaches right now who are about to move into that process. And so we've been talking about it a lot, thinking about it a lot, and we thought we'd share it with you today. So as always, welcome, Anne. Nice to see you. It's been a big, juicy week for us of lots of internal and external things. So let's start the way we always start with what's in process, what's in progress. You have anything on your mind?
Well, I'm feeling very forward-looking we've been speaking a bit about this concept called being in a towards state. So today I'm going to be going on a trip with my family, and I am excited to do that trip. I get to see my stepdaughter, who I haven't seen in a while. I'm very excited to see her and meet her boyfriend's family, which is kind of a bigger step. So
Is that the first time?
Yeah, it'll be our first time.
Great. Great. Yeah, but for me, I've been traveling a bit, gone for 2 weeks, working light for week 1, not working for week 2. And, transitions, as I'm sure I've mentioned here in this container, are often difficult. So I'm always like searching for ways to ease in and better support myself. And it was really interesting because I had to take a really terrible flight home from Colorado. And that was like, I had a layover and my layover was 4 hours and I had to take the bus from where I was to the airport in Denver. And it just was like 12 hours of travel. But what I realized was that it was great for me. It was really great. I mean, it's not fun to be in the airport and moving about like that. But I just kept realizing like, I really like there were things on my mind I wanted to process and download. I wanted to like be able to sit with reflecting back on the 2 weeks and, thoughts and things I had been kind of milling over. And then I really wanted to like get a foothold again on like, what am I re-entering into both professionally, from work, and then what's going to be waiting for me at home and how am I going to prepare myself? So just appreciating, I think, that we do need transition time and we each transition differently and that evolves over time, and that being attentive to that is actually really, really important. So that's kind of what's been on my mind this week as I've been back into the fray.
Into the thick of it. Yeah. I think it's interesting because, it was something like on, from an outside like perspective, like who wants a 4-hour layover and who want, but then, you were able to sort of use it into this transition time for yourself. And it was interesting because this morning I was reading a book about creating rituals for work, especially within the online space, which is something that we dive into when you're developing an online course for people. It's like, what are the rituals you can create?
Yeah.
And one of the rituals was all about like how to end your workday, because when, for those people who work at home, which can be a course creator's life, is you can work from your home. And, like, what are the rituals that you need in place to kind of have that time? Because you don't have a commute anymore. So it just kind of makes me...
We talked about this before. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And so, like, how can you create this sense of literal time space, whether you close your computer and you take a walk around the block? And for you had, a 12-hour like day forced on you, but yet you were able to use it as a transition time.
Yeah.
I just want to be like, bravo.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
good.
yeah, it makes me think of what's relevant about that to our topic today, which is what I notice about my ability is when I'm aware of my nervous system becoming dysregulated. Like I had also when I transition back to California, I'm also leaving my partner, and so that there's an emotional component for in that for me, and so I think because of the nervous system work, because of the work that we do, that is so like the roadmap is like we develop awareness of our nervous system and we become very acquainted with how it expresses itself. And the more you do that over time, you really get a sense of how it's responding to different domains, different aspects or containers of your life, like your love relationship or your parental child relationship or different aspects of your business, which is what we're going to talk about in our nervous system business map. But I could really watch myself and feel the different waves and kinds of dysregulation that were rising up, like even the night before, like thinking about packing and leaving and what the morning would look like and then the drive to the bus and then getting on the bus. It's like I think whereas in the past, it would have been very easy for me to be stuck in one of those dysregulated states. Like it took me a few hours, honestly, but I was able to be like, okay, this is dysregulation. I'm responding to all of these different factors. And how can I support myself right now in this moment, very simply to begin to regulate? And I literally just started to take some deep breaths. And I used a counting breath method, that we use, which is, not uncommon. And then I started to use a reflection question. So repeating something in my mind as I was breathing to help kind of reorient my attention. And that's when I realized, I think I was still waiting for the bus. And I was just like, this is actually probably really good for me. Like, how can I be in a torn state,
Yeah.
right? About this and, and maximize it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. It's just really cool how with that kind of awareness and with some simple tools, you can shift not only your thinking, right? Your literal brain state. That's what the toward and away state is all about, like the capacity of your prefrontal cortex to attend but then shift your nervous system as well. So that harmonizing really puts you in a different mind state. And so I just really appreciated that. And although it was a long day, it was like I felt really good about getting stuff done and having time to like read. And um, I didn't have, I often depend on Wi-Fi on the plane because I do fly a lot and I couldn't get Wi-Fi on the last flight. And I was like super bummed out at first because I had work I wanted to do. But instead, I journaled for an hour and a half. And that was really powerful. So, I just am always, I think, surprised and delighted by how we can shift ourselves to just enjoy what's happening in the present moment, and to be in more of what we also think of sometimes is like a positive urgency state rather than, being resistant and upset about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the nervous system business map. And as I said, we're going to focus on one aspect. And tell me because honestly, Dan, to give you total credit, I think this was your brainchild.
Thank you.
I think, we had been doing, I typically spearhead the nervous system work in our business, but Anne is so astute and thoughtful in her thinking. I think you said like how we were in conversation around how do we bring this into the business lane of our work more actively. And you came up with this idea. Tell us a little bit about your thinking around the origins of this. tool?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a person who absolutely loves science and I love frameworks and ideas. And Chantel really introduced the nervous system work to me, which is the work by Stephen Porges of the polyvagal theory. We lean a lot also on one of the women who has really brought his work forward, a woman named Deb Dana. And we really wanted to, I think, like, I also have a big side of me that's like super practical. And I'm like, how can I just, like, because I think in me, it makes me feel safe. Like, I feel a little unsafe when I'm like, what do I do with these things? Like, I want it, there's something about me that I really want it to be crystalline and in a practical way. And that is one of the skill sets that I learned in graduate school, was to take science, and how do you take science and really apply it to learning and education. That in this position, we're taking it into, how can leaders or entrepreneurs, educate themselves about their own nervous systems and how it really affects their business, because it can really affect your business. And I wish I had this tool for all the years that I was an entrepreneur prior to knowing the nervous system work. I mean, knowing the nervous system work was amazing and wonderful on its own, but additionally having this tool and seeing it in a really practical way has just been really, really helpful. And so I think I was wanting some of our clients to really experience that, especially because, when you work with a mentor or a coach, you want to kind of fast track your results, right? And so this is a way when you can develop a tool where we can really support you in fast tracking your results. So you become aware of your nervous system, but then you really want to look at it in different domains. So I think that's why I was sort of excited to create it.
Mm-hmm.
So we use it for different domains, but today I think one of your jobs, if you're a business owner, or an entrepreneur or a leader, or if you're just within the marketing piece of a business, is to lean into that nervous system perspective, is to be responsible for marketing, right? But for some people, marketing can feel really dysregulating. And so I think I'd love to kind of talk about what are the behaviors that come up when someone's dysregulated around their marketing. Well, so one, I think I'll just start with one, is like, well, I don't want to do it. I just get referrals and I don't need to market. So it's just which is like basically complete abdication and abandonment that you even need to market.
Yeah. Oh, and I think is interesting about that is I don't want to conflate these two things, because sometimes I think it's very interesting, because sometimes businesses do fully work on referrals and maybe they don't have to market. Where it gets very interesting is if you say you're trying to reach a goal, which is maybe a sales goal, or you're building your audience, and then you say, I don't want to because I don't have to. It's like, well, you do want to, but you're using the I don't have to because I've never had to, like, as an excuse. And I think that is also that's a dysregulated expression, right? Your nervous system is saying, like, I don't want to, I don't know how because I've never had to. It feels risky, it feels unsafe. And so I'm going to come up with all kinds of reasons to not do it, because sometimes you really just don't have to. If you're fine with the way things are going and your work is based on referrals, good for you. Like, go put attention into something else. But yeah, we would call that, like, it's like when resistance shows up. So how do you know if you're dysregulated around marketing? Well, if there's any kind of resistance, right? Like if you come up with excuses, you put it off, you procrastinate, you come up with reasons why. Let's say we hear this a lot, like social media is the devil. It's like, it's not good for my health. Like, and I want to honor that social media can be incredibly seductive and addictive. And we definitely are having a chemical response to the way social media works, right? And there is a way through that if you choose, right? There is a way through that to make social media work for you. so that you're not a slave to it and you're not being beaten up by it. And I think that's something Anne and I have done quite well is, but you have to be willing to like step into it so that you can be in choice. So the resistance can show up like social media is the devil and it's bad for my health. And yet there's maybe a part of you that's also like, well, I have to use social media and I want these, to reach these goals and objectives. So but I'm not going to. Like you keep demonizing the vehicle rather
The tool.
rather than being able to steady yourself in a regulated state and say, what's in this for me? What's the possibility? How can I navigate this and be in integrity? How can I navigate this and still align with my values? Like those kind of open, objective thoughts and experiences come from a regulated nervous system, one that feels safe, right? Resistance, making excuses, putting blame, forcing something away, like those things come from a dysregulated nervous system. So this is something we see at play quite a bit. And then I think just like for me, I know when I am dysregulated, it's harder for me to attend to putting myself out in the world. Like I don't necessarily have aversion to marketing because I actually really love to connect with people. And it's through connection and relationship that my marketing, I think, is the strongest. But what I notice is when I am in overwhelm and tired and dysregulated, I have a much harder time stepping into a realm that's already like a little harder for me, right? So I want to just position it like you might already be dysregulated because of other things. And then marketing comes up and then you become really resistant to it and it can further dysregulate you. So it's not just that it may not be for you that it's just that marketing feels risky or scary or unknown or you're overwhelmed because you don't know how to do it. It could be that if you are you're generally dysregulated, anything that is unknown is going to feel harder, right? That's that's the away state. Your brain is in an away state. Your body is dysregulated. Your brain is in an away state, which means you can't really take in new information, process new information analytically. And so it just makes everything harder. Whether we're talking about sales or marketing or building teams or delivery to our clients, these are some of the other areas that we talk about in the business, the nervous system business mapping.
Yeah. So I'd love to give everyone here listening or watching a little bit of a task. So one way in which you can think about your nervous system and the business map in regards to marketing is to think about what feels dysregulating for you within your marketing. And so some of the examples that we've received is, well, I haven't emailed my list in a year. So I don't want to start. How do I start emailing them if all of a sudden I'm only going to email an offer? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or basically it's just like, how do I re-engage? How do I reintroduce myself? And I don't, and a lot of times we hear, well, the first thing I want to say is not necessarily, will you buy something from me? Right. And so that's why there's like plans and sequences that you can use to not do that. So sometimes we see it with people wanting to reach out to their email list. Maybe if you're someone who frequently markets on social media and you just stopped for a little while and you're like, how do I re-enter this? That can be where we see people feel dysregulated. People can be concerned about making a mistake. People can be concerned about being judged. People can be concerned about, bullying on the internet is a thing. Some people have been bullied on the internet.
Happened to kids.
Yeah, it's happened to kids. It happens to adults. I've seen it happen in multiple realms. And I want to say the most ironic places that I've seen this happen is sometimes within places where people are leaning on science and they're like, but the science says this and I'm right because this is what the science says. But then they're all bullies. And I want to say, well, if you look at the science of bullying, I don't care if you have the science of X behind you. You're not interfacing on a public square, which is what social media or, these types of things are. So I just have to put that out there because I'm always like, come on, like cut it out. But, anyways, so you have to just be mindful of, social media or putting yourself out there in marketing. Yeah, there's some risk. And so if you want to, but owning a business is a risk. Creating something is risky. Life is risky, right? And so if you want to be successful and you want to be, get your work out there and be creative and live your life and not be nervous all the time about X, Y, or Z, we have to come to a place where you can find some regulation. And so one of the things we like you to do is think about, well, what dysregulates you around marketing? And then the other question is, well, either A, how can you find regulation in your life? So I think of it as like behaviors where you're seeking out joy, which is not our biological default position. We're usually defaulted to search for danger. So it takes practice to search for joy. And then how can we, where are ways in which you can find joy in marketing? And so I think with a lot of people who kind of rest on, well, I get referrals and it's all referrals. It's like, well, you get joy in that. You get joy that other people are marketing for you and that you have this referral piece, right? So you have to find and detangle that.
Yeah. And it just makes me, I want to make sure that we are also giving some like airtime to marketing in real life. And so like marketing by joining a networking group or by doing affiliate programming with local businesses or flyers. Like there's all kinds of marketing that can feel regulating and dysregulating. And I want to make sure that we're really attending to the live in-person space and also the online space. Because I think that when you can attend to marketing from a regulated nervous system space, and your brain is in a toward state, the options open. You just see that there's more possibility, and you see it's like you can, like literally the prefrontal cortex has more capacity, and you can like analytically weigh things with more practicality, and you can say, oh, I don't have to do Facebook stories, Facebook posts, Facebook, lives, and all the things. It's like I can actually just, what if I just choose the ones that resonate with me most, that I feel most excited about, that are not dysregulating, and I choose these other in-person. Like there are other things I can do. I think when we're dysregulated, we feel so closed down and pigeonholed. It's like the world shrinks, it's like, and literally that's what's happening. Like from a very physiological perspective, when you're dysregulated, your hearing is narrowing, your vision is narrowing, the way you can express it narrows, right? Like you stop being able to express facially, you stop being able to express tonally through your voice. Like that's what's happening because you're taking all the extraneous information away and you're focusing on what's dangerous, that cue of danger. And so when that just makes everything harder, right? That makes doing anything harder. And then you probably beat yourself up about it. And then that feels even worse. So there are, let's switch gears. So love that Anne is inviting you to consider like what's dysregulating and what's regulating. Like basically like another way to think about that is what feels exciting and motivating and what feels like a total downer. Like that you go like, oh God, I have to do that thing, and then I would be curious. You can make it like a Venn diagram, right? Like one circle holds all the dysregulating, uncomfortable things. one circle holds all of the comfortable, exciting, motivating things. And then what's this like spot in the middle where, and I'll give you an example. I do a nervous system series. It's a 3-part series, and I do it every couple of weeks called Know Your Nervous System, Soothe Your Nervous System, Improve Your Nervous System. And they're always Instagram reels. And I do it specifically to draw people into the work, to like get them to know the work. I really like to do them. I feel so inspired to do them. I love when they're done, and yet I have resistance because they're still a little new. I think I've done like maybe not quite 10. And so for me, they're in that middle place where it's like, I do want to do them. I know that it feels good. I do want to be sharing the work with new people. And yet I can feel the dysregulation and the resistance. However, what I notice is I have to like help myself out a little bit. I have to like do a little nervous system work. I have to write out a plan. I have to decide on the day and time I'm going to do it. Like all of this is soothing for my nervous system. Take a couple of deep breaths. I make sure I'm not trying to like force it into, 10 minutes between a call with Ann and kid pickup. Like I really attend to my nervous system. And when I'm regulated, I can step into the things that are riskier more easily. And so I would be curious to just have you notice like what's in the middle and how can you get better at being regulated or regulating yourself so you can step into new action. Because what we do know is that from an entrepreneurial perspective, new action is necessary and really critical. And new action can be scary and risky and dysregulating. So, there are lots of pieces to this puzzle. Why don't we finish by just giving a couple of examples of what it feels like when marketing is regulating or when you can be regulated in the marketing? Like, I think you probably have this experience a fair bit, Pam.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've just always been a little interested in marketing since I was 23 years old and opened my Pilates studio. One of the first things I did was in real life, made a little sandwich board. And it felt so good to roll that darn sandwich board out before I started my day teaching. I don't think when I was very young, I had rollers on it, but pretty soon I was like, well, I'm a Pilates instructor, so this sandwich board better be ergonomic. I'm going to put some rollers on it. But like, I don't know. There's just something like that, felt really good to me to do that. And, I don't know. I was just interested in enough. Like I absolutely love Pilates and all the science behind it and blah, blah, blah. But so that's carried with me through my whole entrepreneurial career. And I mean, I think it's good to have that. If I hated marketing, I think being in business would be a little bit trickier for me, a little bit harder. So that is an example of in real life where I felt regulated. It felt good to have. And what did I do? I had a friend at that age, and her brother-in-law was a musician, and he did like design on the side. And this was when like Kinko's used to be opened. And he like would work at Kinko's, and he was this great musician. He still has his band, he and his wife, but and he like made my logo, and I felt kind of hip because the logo was kind of hip, and it felt good, and it helped me being so young to have something that was like, no, I'm a business, like, and I'm standing behind this. But, I had the older, like probably like 26-year-old develop my, logo, but it felt like, such a thing. And so that was one way, I think. And man, did that sandwich board brought in more business than I can even count. I mean, I would have people, the studio is open for 20 years. People like, I walked by your sandwich board sign for 15 years. I'm like, well, why didn't you come in 12 years ago? But hey, welcome, come on in. Like, it's just kind of funny. But I think now, like some regulating things that I've found, what I find really interesting about, because that's the real world, right? But there's and in the real world, you can have this person called a lurker. And we use we use lurkers more in the terms of social media because they'll constantly read your posts, but they'll never say anything. They'll never click. So you're not getting those likes with those dopamine hits. So you don't know. But then people will reach out and talk to you, and they'll say, I've been reading and watching you, but I never say anything.
Yeah.
Because they're not feeling comfortable to say anything. In fact, I just was in conversation with someone who's going to teach one of our groups a little bit more about some AI, which I'm excited about. And her comment was, I read all your stuff all the time. And I'm like, well, I never would have known because you never click ever, but it's just, so I think it's a little bit of trust, just knowing that people, we need to hear each other. And we need to hear people that aren't the people who are just getting all the clicks and the likes.
Yeah. Well, I think it brings it back to like more real world connection. And
yes,
for me, I think that's where I feel like I try to keep leaning into always like that sense of, I know how regulated I feel and how good I feel when I'm connecting with people. And so what are the different ways in which I can connect with people, in like a genuine way, like where there's actually exchange. And it's not like just about being in the online space. Like, it's a lot of other things. Like, I still get people who say, oh my gosh, somebody recently that we've worked with for a long time. She's like, I just bought your book. I wrote that book like 11 years ago. Or the Thinking Pilates podcast or this podcast. Like I'm listening. And so I'm always like, how do I cultivate those avenues, right? Those things where I'm getting a lot out of it. And I know that other people are too. So this is the work that we're doing right now. That's so cool is we're specifically doing a lot of nervous system work in relationship to marketing. And we have a very cool event coming up next week called Catalyzing Confidence. And it is all about making marketing easier, tapping into like your marketing queen, like really like soothing your nervous system. And what we know is that we need to be in relationship with others. That makes us feel safe. And we need a blueprint. We need a framework. We need to know what the steps are. And so next week, Thursday, that's going to be March 14th at 10:30 a.m. PST. And we will drop another link for you all to get signed up. We're going to be talking about the strategies to help you figure out what about your marketing is dysregulating. How do you regulate yourself? How do you make these choices so you can stay in regulation, even when you're taking risks and doing things that feel a little bit new and a little bit uncomfortable? So we'll drop a link below. And if you're listening to this podcast sometime in the future, don't hesitate to jump into our website and see what we've got going on because we're always doing things like this. And if you want a taste of the entire business, nervous system business map, we talk about things like sales, offers, clients, building teams, systems. So there are 6 areas. So if there's any area of your business that you are feeling stressed out about, resistant to, or that's not quite working, looking at it from the perspective of the nervous system and regulation is incredibly powerful. We'd love to invite you to chat with us about that and learn more. And we can drop a link to get on a call as well. We'll put that in the show notes as well. So you know always how to reach us and dive into this work a little bit more. All right, Anne. Well, I'm going to send you off to go spend time with your family and move into the rest of our day. Thanks everybody for being here and listening. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.